All right, welcome everyone to this Force Friday. All right, very excited to be here today with all of you. Before we get started, I have a couple of announcements. The first announcement is, as you can see, we now have down below the chat, next to the little custom emoji smiley face is a square with a $ in it. It stands for super chat or super stickers. You can see I put one up there earlier that says Force with Mike Matese, which is me, with this cute little fox making a smiley face. So there are little purchases. Basically, if you buy anything there, that's going to obviously go towards this channel, and it's going to help us buy more equipment and obviously give us the capacity to keep coming to you and sharing this with you every Friday. So if you want to make a call out there, thank you very much for any effort on that side of things. Today, we are going to talk about how to draw form with Force, right? So this is actually a really big deal. And the reason I say it's a big deal is because I think this is one of the largest gaps in drawing education that I've seen around the world, with drawing form and also drawing gesture. So even if you have a drawing instructor who teaches you, hey, draw gesture, right? And they want you to draw these really active figures. They may not even have force per se. Maybe they don't know that concept, but at least they're trying to get you to draw active figures, right? And then typically what happens is the teacher then says, now draw, boxes and tubes on top of that. And dun, 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 right? Like that's the end, right? At that point, the figure is dead, right? So you've had this live thing that you've been scribbling out, and then you stick these tubes and boxes in there, you immediately like kill the figure. And then on top of that, they tell you to pile on anatomy, and that kills the figure even more, right? And by the time, you're done with your drawing, you've beaten it to death. Oh, thank you, Brianna. Woohoo, we have our first super sticker. Thanks, Brianna. We really appreciate it. So like I said, it's like death after death after death, right? Of killing that first gesture drawing. We don't want to do that, right? Our goal here is to say, look, we're going to draw with force, and we want to keep that force ball rolling. The metaphor I love joking around with the premium members and mentees at drawingforce.com with on this is, I'm the doctor and I got to keep that darn model alive, right? I want to keep my drawing alive. I don't want to kill it or kill them or he or her, right? I don't want to kill them. So how do you do that, right? There is actually a very specific way of doing that, which I call force form, or you'll hear me sometimes say force sculpting. And I love the idea of trying to get into the mindset of being a sculptor. One of the sculptors I bring up very often here, and you can check him out during the session today or thereafter, is named Richard McDonald. One of probably my favorite sculptor, I would say, contemporary sculptor to date right now is Richard McDonald. Just amazing, amazing figures in motion. I feel like, man, if I can sculpt, I would do what Richard McDonald is doing. And if I had the patience to do it, I would love to be able to do what he's doing. He's doing exactly what I teach in clay that he turns into bronze sculptures, right? So just I think an amazing, amazing sculptor. So go check him out, Richard McDonald. So we're going to show you today, like, how to do this, right? How do you keep this alive? We're also, of course, going to go over our contestants today, right? This whole past week, we've had this contest going on about you guys submitting work that shows figure drawings that have force sculpture in it, right? So it's going to be an exciting day. We're each going to draw for you also. And then on Monday, we will have the next Force challenge, right? For Force February. And we will be going into our third week, right? So lots of great stuff. And I also have a little surprise for everyone at the end of today's session that I want to share with you. So lots of stuff to take a look at in our very special Force February 2-hour session today. So let's get started, right? First, I want to talk about how we do what we do. Actually, first, we want to say hello to our fellow Force instructors, right? So how's it going, Swenley and Mrityunjay?
It's going good. How are you?
I am doing great. Yeah, it's been a very exciting week. Lots of good stuff is happening. I love the month of February. It's my birthday month, so I have a thing for February. How are you doing, Swenley?
He's turning off. Like
He's like, wait, my mic, there it is. He's still off.
suddenly, can you hear us?
Earth to Swenley.
He may be
All
too
right,
excited because of new features like super chat and
maybe.
everything.
Well, yeah, exactly. So much going on today. I know. I think, yeah, Swanley's Zoom froze. All right, so let's keep moving. I'm going to take us back to Photoshop and let's talk about sculpting, right? So force sculpting is what we want to get to. But the first step here, I think, is, can you take a
I think
line,
my mic
right?
is
Can you
back on.
take a
Yeah,
line?
Zoom froze for a minute
Yeah,
there,
we can hear
but
you.
I'm good.
You're back.
Excited for tonight.
Good, 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 good. I'm happy that you have a voice again. So we want to use this line, our force line, and figure out how to get it on form. So that's the first step for all of you that want to just even understand sculpting, which is what leads you to three-dimensional space. When it comes to drawers, by the way, in this space, Gary Villarreal, I would say, is amazing at this, right? We did an interview with him at middle towards end of last year. So check him out on the interviews, and you can go check out his Instagram. In fact, he just put out a book on his artwork, which is gorgeous. He's amazing at taking something like, let's say, the sphere, right? And he'll do this, right? He'll just keep wrapping it and wrapping it and wrapping it like so. And he'll do it on its two axes. So I happen to pick this direction on the sphere. The sphere is typically directionless because it's just a ball. So I happen to put lines on it on this axis. And then I can go in its exact opposite direction and do this. And most of you, I would imagine, would look at this and say, oh, I see. You're talking about creating a wire mesh. Yeah, in some ways I am, right? Like at the beginning, you want to be able to at least do this, right? You want to be able to mesh a drawing, right? That's a good place to start, even on the figure, to understand how to create a more structured form. Now on the website on drawingforce.com, I'm actually I'm more fond of the box than I am the sphere because the box has more clarity, right? The perspective is much more clear. We've got these sharper corners. Like I said, here, I don't know what the axes are. Here I know. I've got this axis, I got this axis, and I got this axis. I could see them very clearly based on the different surfaces and their direction, right? So now, instead of just wrapping like I did before, I'd like to make it a little bit more of a sculptural experience, right? So I want to try to take these lines and sculpt the ball out instead. I want this to be a little bit more organic. Now, how do I put those lines on the ball? Well, how do I know what direction to go in? That's probably the hardest part of this whole thing, right? Before you even talk about force lines describing force, it's like just getting lines on the form, right? If I go over here and I put a line like this, doesn't really feel like it works, right? Because if this was something like a ball, it's a sphere, right? And I'm looking at it from dead center, that means the mesh is going to go like this, and it's going to wrap around this way, around to the side. So it doesn't seem to make much sense for me to put a curve like this on that surface of the ball. I could take that curve and put it over here, right? That would work, because if I put a mesh on it, right, it's turning this way, and it's going around that plane, right around that surface over to the contour. You could say, really, the contour is helping us understand what the interior surface is doing. And since it's a ball, I could basically go along any edge and come in, right? So here's an edge and I pull it in, right? And I can keep pulling these edges in, and voila, right? I'm starting to sculpt this, right? I'm starting to actually sculpt this ball, right? And that's working. Now, if I want to get even more specific, in perspective, lines get closer together as they go further away, and they spread apart as they get closer. So I could even say, you know what, I'm going to put lines closer together on the edge there. It's going to be darker because of that. And I'm not even doing it for light and shadow. It's just line piling up, right? So it gets darker out there, and then I open these lines up further and further apart, right? And then stay further and further apart. I go around the other side, and then they get closer together again, right? So you can see, suddenly you really get to feel this this roundness, right? You could feel the spheroid-like quality, right? And I could do that going the other direction, right? I can go this way and do the same thing, and then sweep my way back down here. and so on, right? So that's how you can handle the ball, right? So be aware of when you're sculpting, you want to feel how you're going to go back down into space or come back out of space and come forward, right? And that your line should wrap around that surface, and the contour of the edge will typically help you understand how to stick to that surface, right? Because, by the way, because shape and form, right, come together, right? So if I were to tone this in, I have a flat shape of a circle, but now I have this sculpting inside of it and I've made it a mass, right? Now all of a sudden it's a sphere, not a circle, right? Okay, so that brings us to our box, right? So one main thing you want to be aware of on something like a box is if I'm going to put lines on the box and sculpt them, they're pretty much going to be straight lines now, because notice all the contours, they're straight lines, right? I don't want to do this on the box. Doesn't make any sense, right? I'm not sitting on the surface. I put a curved line on a flat surface. Doesn't work. What's really, really, really important with the box is to understand these turning edges and make sure if you draw lines that you respect the corner and go back down in the other direction. You see what I'm doing? Right, so I got to turn the corner and go in those directions, right? Now, if I'm just floating on a surface, I can draw actually quite a few straight lines. That'll work. Now, if I use the grid, let's start with the grid, right? If I did the grid, I would stay with the two axes to create this 3D mesh, right? I would say, well, I can go this way and I can go this way. And those are the two main axes for that plane. So those are a good place to start, meaning I can sculpt straight lines on there in those directions, right? I can sculpt this way and I can sculpt this way, you see? So those will both work. I can put angled lines on here if I want as well, as long as I stay flat. It actually does work. It's not as clear in presenting the angle of perspective as the other lines are, because they're lined up with the contours. And the same thing applies with the ball. If I want to say, this is the closest turning edge, which it is, right? It's closer than this contour. I could start darker on the far end and actually kind of lighten my way up as I come out, not only to create, again, render, but that line would get closer together on the far end and would spread out as we come forward, right? So those are the things you want to be aware of. On drawingforce.com, when we're teaching structure, I actually do have students draw the figure with this construction. But the trick is to make sure that when you are constructing, right, let's say this is a torso, right? Here's a torso. It's an S torso, right? Like so. So when I put form in there, whoops, when I put form inside of this, right? I don't know if you guys can hear that siren. See, that's the force police making sure I do my job. Right, so here I have this turning edge. Notice the turning edge is bending. It is flexible. I didn't just like take my gesture and shove a box in there and try and stiffen up the pose, right? I want to keep it alive. So that means this turning edge has to have flexibility. Most of you probably don't know who Gumby is anymore because it's from like the 60s and 70s. But Gumby was a bendy character, right? And he was kind of a shape like this, to tell you the truth, with a giant face on it, right? Like this. And he had, you know, he was bendable, right? So if you can put him in an S pose and his turning edge would bend with the direction, right? So what my point here to all of this is, if you're going to start drawing force and then you put in form, don't just shove boxes and tubes in there, because you're going to kill it. I can guarantee it. It's that strong, right? You want to allow the forms to bend with the forces themselves. So that's what we're looking for, right? So turning edges that bend. And now we've got all this sculpting. But the problem with the sculpting is it's not very forceful, right? We've sculpted, but I've sculpted a sphere, I've sculpted a box. They're both dead shapes, they're dead forms. So in order to sculpt force, a huge benefit is to hopefully have some kind of sculptural shape. You don't have to have that shape yet. You can actually sculpt forcefully with not a great shape. And let's start there, okay? So I usually bring this over to saying, let's take something like a tube. Now, we already know that that wouldn't be great because we just talked about that, right? But let's say I had a tube, and this is not a great force tube because it's got to bend, but it's bending equally almost on both sides. It's a bendy tube, not so great. Let's start first with sculpting it in a more primitive way, which is non-forceful. What can I do here? I can do the grid, right? Which means I can sculpt in this way, right? So I can do this roundness, and taking that into sculpting, I can do this. So what does that mean? It means I'm going perpendicular to the form. The form is going this way, and I'm going the opposite direction. This is what Charles Dana Gibson does. All right, and on drawingforce.com, we go through this, and he's one of our mentors, right? We look at Charles Dana Gibson to understand how he does this. Let's throw Dana in there, it's his middle name, right? So this is exactly what he does. I call him the lumberjack because he chops away at this. He even facets this roundness and says, you know what? I've got this angle, I've got this angle, and he chops it down. He takes that, he lifts and angularizes it. He facets it like a diamond, right? And he chops away at this. It's pretty cool. It's damn good draftsmanship. Doesn't have force, right? It's structural, super structure, right? So not that great. We could go the other way, right? See if I can actually back all the way out. Probably not. Okay. So the other way would be to go like this. Not bad. I have to say, it gives me length. It actually does go with the axis of force. I call this crawling in, right? So I can crawl in the line like this, right? And I can even put them tighter together down there and spread them out as I come up. That would even help give me a sense of the tubularness of it, the roundness of it. Problem with this is I might lose the roundness, right? So I don't know if this is going to be enough. It's the best way to handle it. So it's good, not great. It also has its pitfalls, right? So what we want to do, and all these are sculpting, by the way, again, just to be clear, they're all sculpting. And you may have to use all of them when you're trying to sculpt the figure. Another method would be applied force, right? So let's say now that I actually have a rhythm going from here to maybe here in whatever this structure is, okay? Maybe it's a leg and here's the knee, right? This is going like this. Now, this is where all of a sudden force starts coming into play, right? So maybe I come in here with some roundness, but I angle this down because I want to sweep into here, right? And this is almost like the crawling in. So I'm bringing in the line, and maybe I want to come up over here and sculpt on this diagonal and pull my way into the knee. So I'm going around the tube, but I'm pushing these diagonals, which are really applied forces. This is an applied force, this is an applied force. You see? And I'm now getting roundness and force at the same time, you see? This is by far the most, I would say, challenging way to sculpt, but definitely the most forceful, right? I'm moving through and across and around the body following the path itself. This is what I'm looking for. I want to see how much of this did we get out of you guys this past week that were up for the challenge, right? So that's what we want, right? So this was, let's talk about the challenge a little bit. This was our reference for this past week, as you all know. Over here was one of the examples I put up. So if I zoom in on this, you can see I'm grabbing edges, I'm pulling around forms. Here, I'm feeling the force down the back of the model's arm. Here, you can see applied force going from the edge of the rib cage across the stomach, down into the abs, along the bottom, and into the hip. Here, I'm going down the thigh, right? So this is like a crawl in, applied force going across, crawl in, applied force, right? Going across. And you can see I'm trying to sculpt crawl ins and applied forces through and around the figure to try and bring as much energy to form as possible and not kill the model. Am I aware of the boxes in here and tubes? Yes, most definitely. Do you see that in the drawing? No, right? I'm just drawing the human body, but I'm aware of the abstraction of making sure I know where those turning edges are. For instance, in Andy's body here, let's see, let me get the color blue out here. I know that the turning edge is sitting right in here. Okay, so notice what happens over here to these applied force lines, I come up to the corner of the box and I flip over onto the other side to drive my way down to the hip, right? So as I come up over the corner, I've got to flip into an opposite direction of curve to get me to drive down to the next place, right? Now, on a side note, just on a little random thought here, this is a great way to ink, right? If you were doing comics, this idea of sculpting with force would be an amazing inking tool, right? Because you would keep your heroes not only structured, but fluid at the same time, right? So those of you that are interested out there in working on comics and wanting to ink your work, or even doing pencils like this is awesome, right? Because you've got really fluid bodies, you're not losing the drama of their poses, and yet at the same time, you are sculpting form, right? Okay, so let's take a look at some of the contestants. If you do, oh, before I leave, actually, I want to take a look at this Frazetta piece. So I put this in the post as well. I firmly believe that I think Frazetta is the god of what I'm teaching here. I would even dare say more so than the Renaissance, believe it or not. He's like using it exactly the way that I teach it. And, you know, if you look really close, and this was done with brush, by the way, just to give you a sense of his line control, right? When you look at this over here, right, in his stomach, like, look at how awesome this is, right? All these lines of force go this way. He's getting force out of it. He's getting light and shadow. He's getting anatomy, right? He's getting form, and he's getting the force, right? So force is sweeping from the stomach up and sweeping into this arm, right? He uses force for composition as well. I mean, look at how clever it is that he uses her hair to tie into this guy's fist, which brings us into this guy. And one of my favorite all-time areas of his illustrations in black and white is this whole region on this guy's back, right? You can't not love the fact that he's a zombie getting punched in the face. That's fun, right? But with that aside, look, right? Look at all of the force lines in here. He's using the force line, sculpting with brush, coming across the muscles, and you can follow the path across all these bumps of anatomy, right? It's like this giant army of force going up and over the trapezius, coming down this way, and then finally sweeping into the edge here of the deltoid, which he then repeats the roundness of, right? So he takes that arm back in space in perspective, right? And over here along the back, it's just, like I said, this giant massive movement rippling across all these muscles to get us all the way out to that guy's hand, right? Just amazing, right? Just amazing. Yes, and as Comic Court says, force as composition as well, right? On top of everything, he's got this going this way, this guy's going this way, you see his head's going this way, so you know something happened here with his two reverse directions that are dividing. And you have the female at the bottom who's sweeping and connected up into this whole thing. And he's got these strong 45-degree angles, which are the angle of most drama for all this to stand on top of, right? It's awesome. I quite frankly think it's a masterpiece. You know, it's amazing. So hats off to Frazetta. Fantastic. So that leads us to the challenge, right? So what we're going to do is let's just take a look at some of the challengers. And then before I present the winner, we're going to, Mrityunjay is going to demo and take that image that we just saw, and he's going to do his version of it. And then we will present the winner. And then I will do some drawing. Swenley will do some drawing. And then I have a little surprise for you guys at the end. Okay. Everyone bearing with me so far? Let's take a look at some of the submissions. Now, I want to mention two things on submissions. Again, if you don't see your work here today, it means that you probably did not push in enough form, right? Even if it wasn't force form, which we're going to show you, if it didn't have enough form in it, I didn't bring it in. Unfortunately, I have to say there were a couple of people that submitted very late. If you don't see your work here, it also could be that you were late. I think to help you guys and us to legitimize this, let's put a time on this. And I'm going to say, I really need all submissions in by Thursday night at 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Okay. That's usually when I look at it, is at Thursday night, and I go through it and pick a winner. I can't wait until Friday morning. I get cranked up and I start working early Friday morning, and then I'm all of a sudden I roll right into this meeting with you guys, okay? So Thursday night, 8 p.m. Okay, if you don't see it here and you did a great job and there were some that came in late, that the reason you don't see is just that it was late. I had already chosen somebody, okay? All right, this is pretty good, right? There's a lot of good work going on in here, some pretty good line. My main note here would be to this particular person. I'm not sure what your first or last, so I don't want to mess anything up here. My apologies. I would just say you just need to get a little bit more control over your line, but you're on a great path. It's pretty good drawing. You're doing the right things. You just got to control your line more and make sure that line sticks on the model. I really love the idea of, for all of you to imagine that you are literally touching the model with your drawing utensil. It's like I'm carving out the space, right? Like sculpting with clay. And try to push into that metaphor, right? Use your imagination, but pretty darn good job. I think it's a good drawing, right? Same here, right? So this is Devin, I would imagine. Here you have most of the sculpting is being done with only the roundness, a little bit with force. I wish I had seen a little bit more of that. I wish there was more work in it, but pretty good job. Enough so that here it is, I'm presenting it. I think you did a pretty good job. I would say experiment more. Don't be scared to mess up, okay? Even for a challenge, and this is for all of you, even for the next two challenges we have after this, go for it, you know? I applaud courageousness. I'd rather see you guys push yourselves really far out there and work something to death to try and get to your point, okay? So I would just say more, right? This one, pretty good, right? Some good stuff going on in here. Again, I think line control could be a little bit better, but some good sculpting going on. Now, just so you guys are aware, I'm aware that I actually did post the answers to this a little while ago. Some of you were aware of that, some of you were not. Some of you were too aware of it, and I can tell you were too aware of it because it was almost an exact duplicate of my drawing. I did not bring those images in today. I could tell you just went right off of my post, okay? It's a while back, but I did actually post answers to this, okay? I'm really looking to see, I can tell who's really trying to push their own ideas in here and trying to bring them forward, okay? Some good roundness in here, proportions are off. This negative shape should be more square-like. She's too tall, so everything feels kind of stretched. But you're on the right path. I would say be more confident with the sculpting lines. There's no reason they can't be as dark as the external lines, by the way. To me, outside is inside and inside is outside. Contour is form and form is contour. Try not to get too far down the rabbit hole of just outlining your drawings and then doing light interior, okay? But pretty good drawing, okay? Here's another one, pretty good. I wish there was a little bit more accuracy in the pulling of the stomach into the ribs. Now, this is something that's gonna keep coming back because the winner, I think, did a great job in the space. So I wish there was more work in the stomach. I wanna see the stomach pull its way up into the ribs. Again, I would say a little bit more control in the line, and the head feels like it's an afterthought here. And I want everything to really work. The head is very flat with a little bit of sculpting in it, but I can see the perspective is not in there, okay? We want a really good, solid drawing all around. Pretty good. I like the experimentation on here. Again, proportions a little off. This is a little too horizontal versus vertical, and the head's a little off. But I love that you experimented. I got to give you credit for really trying to play with the line. You did start getting some of the pulling from the stomach up into the ribs. You got some nice roundness over here in the shoulder blade and the lats going on. You probably could have used a little bit more force on the arm, but you got some good roundness. Yeah, it's good. Like there's a lot of great experimentation in here. I just think in time, you'll learn how to keep improving your ability to use it. But I would say A+ on experimentation and trying to move around and get the form to work, you know, it's very good. All right, we're almost done. This is all roundness, right? It's good. It's a great place to start. I would say for all of you, if you haven't gotten to the place of getting the line to create force, this is good for form, good forms, right? This is Nurian's, I guess, right? Some good form going on in here. But I want to see not only form, I want to see lines sculpting force as well, if possible, okay? Okay, so now there's this group I kind of put together here. So this first one, this is Gibson. So this is what I showed you earlier. This is super, super solid. It's faceted, but it's not forceful, right? Meaning the lines themselves, the sculpted lines are not forceful. They're not going with the directions of force inside the body. Again, I want you all to be aware, like we saw with Frazetta's drawing, force is not just an edge. It is the entire interior is moving in directions as well. So like if the back is moving in a direction, it's not the edge of the back, it's the full plane of the back, and then all the muscles of the back, right? Everything is moving in a direction. So this is good structure. This is a good first step. For you, the next step would be, can you also try to bring some more angles and roundness that's pulling from one place to another in the body to try to help imply the forces that are going on instead of pure structure, okay? Let's see, what does that say? I would love to hear some discussion today on how you can find force in the other tools of drawing, painting, like composition. Yeah, Jacob, that's an awesome thought. I probably won't do that today, but I think force composition is a great topic to talk about. You know, painting's a tricky one too. I think they're too big. They're too big for today, but I think those are excellent ideas. I think those are just separate subjects, but yes, great thought.
There
Okay,
was
so
also
here,
a question about cross-hatching, Mike.
yeah, great question. What about cross-hatching, right? So if we think about force, you know, we kind of talked about the grid before. So if you had a box like this, you know, let me do it in black so you guys can see better, right? We had a plane, and I cross-hatched basically before. Cross-hatching is doing the two directions. So what does that give me? Like that, it gives me two angles of a plane. I have seen cross-hatching be used and not give me anything, right? Like here, I'll give you another example. Let's say I have the tube, right? I go back to the tube and it's like this, and somebody cross-hatches like this. That's not giving me anything because the lines aren't even wrapping, right? They're not going around the form. They almost feel like there's a flat surface I stuck on the tube. So that's not good. Now, when it comes to force, which is what we're trying to talk about here, I think of lines as arrows of motion, right? A line equals force, right? So if you think about that in terms of cross-hatching and you do this, what does that mean? To me, that's gridlock, right? That might as well be New York City streets from a drone shot, right? Looking down, and you've got a grid. So there's no priority going on there as to where's most motion. Does that mean no cross-hatching can happen? No, I think you can cross-hatch, but it should be probably on some kind of diagonal. Like I might do this, and sometimes you'll see me do this, right? So I'm getting form and force. There's cross-hatching going on, but it's being pulled, right? You can see that there's pull in direction across those two, right? This is pulling us down. This is pulling me out of it, but that's the furthest I would go. I don't want to land here because that's boom, right? Solid grid. I don't want a grid. That kills things, totally stiffens it up. You want to make something stiff? That's the way to do it, right? Definitely create gridlock, okay? Okay, so talking about that, this drawing, just like the one prior, pretty good drawing actually, and it's super solid. Man, I love the solidity in this leg and the foot. You got the back of the heel, some great work going on. But the vast majority of this is structural, a little bit more, almost a little too much Gibson. You're doing a great job up here pulling along the back of the arm. I like the angles in the leg. It's got a style to it, this drawing, which is kind of fun. It's somewhat organic. There's a lot of good stuff going on in here. My main note is I just wish some of the lines were going in the right directions more. And I come back down to here. I think a big part of this pose is getting that stomach to pull up into the ribs and to do it with force. And this is a little too perpendicular to the angle of the structure itself, but pretty good, okay? All right, this is Kyla's, right? It's a pretty good drawing. Again, I have to say, lots of good force going on, good form. She's got the roundness here. She's pulling, right? We've got some in the back of the deltoid here. The two main things I think I would improve here, I would say, is the top and the bottom are pulling equally. So it gives us a bad shape in the deltoid. It's a little too symmetrical. And again, I wish there was more pull going on from the stomach into the ribs. It's almost becomes a little bit more about the roundness here than how much force you might be able to pull from the hip and crotch up into the rib cage and lats, right? Line is great though. We were talking about, most of you at the beginning, about line control. Like, this is very good line control, right? Line's really well managed. It really feels like it's stuck on the body. I only wish the shoulder was a little bit better, and I wish that the midsection was a little bit better. Otherwise, it's great. We've got the back of the heel and stuff also. There's a lot of great work going on here. And I know Kyla's been working on hands. Look at that hand, right? Really nice and solid and blocked out there on top of her head. It's really well built, right? Really well built. Okay, almost at the end. I like this one too. This is David. Very sensitive, good line control, nice movement here on this leg, how we're flowing in, right? I wish the deltoid was better. I wish there was more pull. There's a lot of pull on the back of that shoulder going into the arm. I wish there was more pull in the stomach, pulling up into the rib cage, right? This leg, I think, is very successful. And I think you started pulling off that applied force moment there in that leg too. Head's a little flat. You guys got to watch the head, right? Head's like a darn box. It's rigid, solid structure. So we want to try to nail that. This is Arno's. Arno's on drawingforce.com, and he's been kicking butt like all over the place, like nobody's business. I would say it's a great drawing, right? It's a little, I would say, this is a style call, so this isn't really why I did not pick this, but it's a little plasticky, a little almost over-designed for me. But it's got a lot of great structure, great shape. He's working on shape right now. There's a lot of good stuff going on in here. What it's missing for me is that thing with the stomach, again, pulling up into the lats. I wish there was more work going on in here. It feels a little unclear to me. It's still a little piecemeal. The only thing that's holding it together is the S curve from the rib cage to the stomach, but it's drawn well. There's a ton of skill going on in here, as all of you can see, right? All right, and last but not least, before we mention the winner, is this one. Great drawing, right? Again, nice force, nice form, lots of pulling. I think your line needs a little bit more control, just a touch. The head's a little flat. The perspective is not there yet in the head. But you got a lot of good stuff going on. I love the hand and the gesture of the hand, really, really beautifully handled. I love that you saw the S in this leg and you got the structure in there. I love how you tried to flow through the calf here. I love how you tried to bring over, the top into the side here. A lot of great stuff going on. I just wish there was more right there. Okay. So I'm going to stop there, hide the winner, and we'll do the winner after Mrityunjay draws. Okay. So Mrityunjay, why don't you pick it up, and then after that we'll announce the winner. I'm going to stop share.
All right. All right. Share the content screen. Hopefully you can see my screen.
Yes, you're all good.
All right, getting my newsprint on. How to draw form for today, and I'm gonna basically just jump directly onto this photograph, okay, and show you a little bit demo, okay, and just bringing all the concepts together what Mike told about. Okay, so how you would do it, basically whenever we move into form, it's the confusion between the students. It's like, oh no, we are just like drawing this aggressively, like like this, and the force actually they were doing it so much like this. So there's like one confusion that lives in their mind. It's like, okay, the force only lives on the edges of the body, okay, so that is what they're thinking. And then we have to like clear them about, is like, no, force is not just on the edges of the body, it's like all the inside. So you see like this pulling down like this, okay. So yeah, this is one of the concepts that you gotta understand before like moving to sculpting and like feeling that flow around, okay, like that. So anyways, and a great thought, what Mike's always bring us is form follows function, okay. So yeah, you draw the function and then you just inject like form into it, okay. And then yeah, all the perspective thing and basically sculpting. So the way I start, and you can see this on my Instagram a lot, and I love sculpting. I love Frazetta again, by the way. Again, like Gibson is very good, but he's not forceful. He's like bringing a lot of structure. But Frazetta again, He's one of my favorites, and you can see a lot of that on my Instagram, by the way. So yep, if you want to see like many sculpting demos, you can go there. Anyway, so the way I start is I flow aggressively, but I control the tone of the line. Okay, so if I'm doing like a rhythmic drawing, just like we did, I think last week, right? How to draw like quick gestures. So then I control the line to be like as dark as I want, just like this. Okay, so I can go like full black line, okay, or I can just like go with a little bit like softer or more grayer lines. But when I'm doing like a form thing, okay, I keep my lines a little bit lighter, okay. So just like this, okay. But I still use a soft just to like block in the figure, and then I just change my brush, okay. I just like change my brush to from large pencil to this clean pencil one. Again, you can see like a big difference between these both brushes, okay. So it gives me a more specific control over my lines, okay. So I can, yeah, like really sculpting, okay. And sculpting to me is sculpting to me is like a meditation, because it's like a contrast to the rhythmic gestures, because there we were just like, oh, just quickly catch it up, okay, just quickly draw the gesture as fast as you can. But here it's more like meditation for me. So you will see, obviously, when I draw. So let's start. I'm gonna keep my lines like a little bit softer, as I said. I don't want to go too dark, okay. And you'll see me almost like doing this kind of stuff, okay. Just I'm like repeating as like I'm sculpting with soft touch now, okay. So there's like a big difference in an approach, but it's all relatable, okay. So you gotta like keep all those things like relatable, okay. So uh, you see me almost like doing this kind of stuff, okay. And I'm going into the same direction as the force is flowing, okay. So again, form follows function, remember this thought, okay. So we are still drawing the function of it, but we are doing it with the help of form, okay. Now we're trying to inject the form in itself, okay. So I want to move on to this like rib cage, okay. You can see like it's like poking out, okay. And then it's going back like this, okay. It's rotating into that abdomen area and then going backwards, okay. You can see like just right here. So this is a great moment, okay. This is kind of like a torque like moment, of typhoon like moment, okay. So it's coming off from the shoulders, like going to really into the abdomen and going to the back, okay. So try to understand that that torque like motion, right? Something like this. Now also I have to focus on the scale, okay, because this is right now it's much more like a view where we look at the model directly, okay, on the eye level. But obviously I have to keep that sense of scale, okay, and that perspective in here. So this would be wider, this would be like a wider area, okay. I'm still sticking to the function, okay. I'm still sticking function, bringing in the scale concepts a little bit, okay. Try to get this right there. And okay, let me know if there's any question. So let's see. Okay, so I'm still like bringing this stuff like to the back, okay. So that torque like motion, I don't want to miss it. Let's see, I want to sorry, uniform, resize it, okay, like smaller, very small. So this leg is coming forward, so I'm still following the function of it, okay. And then I'm going to sculpt it later. You see that line, that little bit line, like two lines there. It's just like it giving me a little bit form, that's it's telling me that it's like coming out, okay, of the space. So I don't have to like sculpt it, okay, in order to get like form out of it, okay. If you just like want to feel it, okay, obviously you want to kind of render it or giving it a natural like a rendered type of form, then obviously you have to sculpt it. But look, like these two lines are just left to present the viewer that, okay, that leg is coming forward, okay. You can also see the clothing in here. Clothing helps a lot. It's like an helpful, it's like a friend to you, okay. So you can see like how that clothing actually wraps around her crotch section. Okay, so that's a great tip that you can use. Okay, anyways, I think I need to scale it down a little bit more because this leg is coming forward. Let me choose my brush. All right. Yeah, so this is like coming forward like this till this point. Uh, and I'm really, again, that scale kind of sense. Again, I want to be aware of this space here, like what is this negative space is actually. Okay, so that is helping me here. Okay, so let's get the forces done really fast. Mm. And this is where soft touch helped me. So it's just like I'm not making like immediate marks. I'm just like thinking in terms, okay, that it should land, where it should land. If I end up like a little bit, um, yeah, somewhere here and there, then I can just like fix it really quickly. So okay, I'm just doing it like this. The elbow should be around here, and it goes like that. So again, I'm just like making that motion. You see, like I'm like repeating that motion. I'm just like I want to go into that sculpting phase, but I will do it with another brush. Okay, I just like, but I'm feeling it out. I'm just feeling that race course. It's like, oh, this how it's like flowing into this hand. Let's say, okay. So yeah, the same thing is happening, and I'll just like do a really quick block out for that head. Okay, and for the hand, let's keep it simple for now. Okay, so something like this. So now what? Now is the sculpting time. The main topic that we're going for today. Let's see. You see like this pulling off of this torso structure here as well. Okay, like how like this is pulling off and this is like creating this kind of rhythm again. Okay, so let's change a brush and I'm like want to move into specifics more. Now I start to define like some muscles here and there, like some forms, not the muscles, but I'll give it like a more of an organic look, right? All right. So let's go, like what it's telling me. Okay, so I want to start with my main idea. Okay, I don't want to lose that. Okay, and sculpting is very much like it's not this that's the same darn line that you're using. It's not like always this. Okay, so you got to control it if you wanna really bring in the volume. Okay, there's like two ways that can be done. Either you're just like really thinning in the line, like really small diameter, or you can just like make it thicker like that, and you can control the tone with them, the thickness and the thinness of the line. You can control the tone within them, so it gives you like a lot of control over how much form you want to bring in. Okay, so all right, so yeah, you can like control those lines as well. So let's say like there's like a tube in here. Okay, there's like a tube in here and you want to sculpt it. So even if you're sculpting it with form, and this is what I've seen with many of students, okay, and some of the students I mentor actually did this, and I was like, no, this is not the sculpting kind of thing. So they actually do this. Okay, so as you can see, like I'm sculpting with the form, I'm sculpting with the force, but it still not feels like a round form. Okay, it's not like bringing in that volume in here, and the reason why, it's because that's the same line. Okay, that you're using the force line, but using the same thickness of the line, and you're using the same tone of the line. It's like completely black. So you also want to bring in the line concepts that we learn in the basics. Is like, yeah, what's the tone of the line? What's the strength of the line? Okay, and bring it over here, and then try to sculpt it, and then it will feel you more like this. Okay, so when I'm on the edges, let's say, I can be like a little bit darker and thicker. And when I move into like a surface which is like to the lighter side, where like light is hitting, or I just like want to bring in some form in there. Okay, so I just want to bring in some contrast in there between the lines itself. So I can be like a little bit lighter. Okay, And now you see it actually starts to work, now I'm actually bringing the contrast and the line. Now it starts like, oh, that tube is going from here to here. Okay, it's coming to the top. Okay, it's bringing in its volume, but I'm still not wrapping. I'm still not like doing it perpendicular to the form. Okay, wrapping is like really quick way. So there's like a tube in here, you can just like wrap around like this and gives you that form. But doing it with these force lines and directional, okay, like doing it within the direction of the form, that's actually difficult part. So again, you want to control in the line. You don't want to forget all the concepts that we have learned in the basic section and really want to bring it here as well. So I would do the same in here. So let's see. Sometimes no, not always. What I do is I also bring in the strength of the line where the efforts of the model is. Okay, so let's go and let's see what we can come up with. You can see like there's like an aggressive squash in here. Okay, so that is the point where I want to focus on. Okay, I want the viewer to focus on. There's like, oh, this is like um, such a strong squash. Okay, there's like such a strong efforts that I want to bring in over. So here we go. Okay, so I'm not sculpting. Okay, so you can see like I'm like sculpting like this. It's like, oh, let me get this like torque running. Okay, like around the form like that. So that's here. You can see me darkening up some parts. Like I'm just like focusing on main forces. Okay, so I'm darkening it up, bringing in some contrast. You still see that if I start to do this like all over, let me create another layer. If you start to see me like doing it like this, sculpting with the same line, you still see that these are the force line, but I'm sculpting it. Okay, but you see it starts to like lose its quality. Okay, it starts to lose the quality of the form that we are trying to go into. Okay, because again, I'm not bringing the contrast of line. Okay, I'm not giving it enough time to do it. I want this. Okay, I want this like um, the central line, as you can see here, and how it's like flowing. So I want to go there. I want to create this belly button. Belly button is a great center line, like natural center line. I want to get in there. Uh, you can see me constantly changing the size of the brush, because it really depends upon how much control I want. Another super chat. Uh, anyway, so here we go. Here, the clothing helps me. So how's like this form is like pulling back like this. Okay, so again, I'm bringing in the contrast. Okay, so that is actually giving me a little bit of interest in that section. Okay, uh all right, let's get this wrapping going on. You see, I'm still sticking that to that turning, that torque like motion. Okay, that torque like motion is like really unique here. So really want to like make a point out of that. It's almost like you're not making immediate marks. You're just like spending more time with it and really feeling it out. It's like, again, it's like sculpting. Okay, so when you sculpt, like what happens, it's like sculpting within stone. So when you're sculpting the stone, it's like a solid block like this. Okay, but when you sculpt it enough that it's having like a little bit of form like this. Okay, let's say you got like a rough block after it, and now you're like really going into that form, like really feeling it out. It's just like with your chisel and hammer, it's just like, oh, tick 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 tick, and like really going under the form like that. So you're crawling in a way. And the great metaphor is to compare it with ants. Okay, so let's say like a model is a really uh, giant, okay, like a person, and you're just like an ant, like crawling on their skin. Okay, with your little legs. So you're just like crawling over the body and like really feeling out that form. Okay, really feeling out that um, roundness in there. Okay? So yeah, a lot of great metaphors. And now this form actually suddenly changes. So you see like this. Uh, I'm still sticking to that structure, that form, that torque, going this way. I'm not a very big fan of like doing cross contouring. So I, in the whole piece, I want like a motion kind of thing. Okay. So you see like how this is like traveling. This is, I'm making like so many lines. Okay. I'm just like making uncountable lines, but every line is like actually having a sense. Okay. It's actually having like a role to play basically. Okay. So even if you remove like one line, it's going to make a difference. Okay. So this is what I would like in my drawings. I don't want like any of the marks that are just like lying around there, like doing nothing. So with the breast as well, you can see like I'm not just like making an immediate mark. I'm just like want that form to flow around the body, okay? Because that's how it's attached to. Okay. It's going like that. Okay, like moving into that direction still. Still in that direction here. Let's scope the leg. Okay, so that's coming forward. You see how the soft touch is helping me a lot to because you need to get the soft touch right, because now you can see like we're focusing on small things. Okay, just we're like I'm not zooming in that enough, but you can do it. So we are really focusing on small things. Even if we're not zooming it, we're just like focusing on really small things. So soft touch is helping me to like move on. Okay, because now first I focus on big shapes, now I'm really moving into small forms, so I'm not ruining any proportions or something like that. Okay. So soft touch is helping me a lot here. I'm still making these lines, trying to get this YouTube notifications. All right, trying to get this. Let me erase all this here. All right, so let's get the other leg. Okay, so why I'm not actually focusing here, as you may have seen, like I'm not really focusing here, because I first want to get the main ideas down. Okay, the main idea is that torque like motion. Okay, and this leg is interesting because it has like kicked a lot of butts on drawingfirst.com for students. They're like, oh my god, what is this leg? you know, so let's get that, because that's the unique part of the model. So still trying to get this. It's simple, by the way, but again, because you don't encounter like so much of these kind of forms like in like daily life, so you're just like, oh, that leg is like turning. How is that going on? Shouldn't it break? So you see me like, okay, I'm also thinking about the box in here. Okay, so the box is like really turning. It's like it's kind of like this. Okay, the box is like turning like this, so that's the edge, and this is the edge like this. So yeah, it can be like a lot of turning in there. um, so how I would move it, you can see like the really clear, it's actually coming from here. Yes, it's actually coming from there. Sorry about that. Okay, so now how it's sculpted, it's just like, oh, let me get this. Any questions regarding this? All right, I'm getting this done. So all right, so yeah, it like really taking me from like the torso. It's like all the energy that's coming from the leg, and that's like moving into onto the leg there. All right, let's get some hands going on. Now it really like finish it fast because I've explained much. The same process that's going on. I'm just like following the function out of it. Okay. Whoops, there my goes my Apple Pencil. I'm getting back. All right. Getting those main ideas. Here, I don't want to like don't want to really focus on shapes here. That's a like really important shape. Okay, I don't want to like really move on to like the shape conversation here. But again, like that's a part of it. Okay, so you can see like that leg is clearly holding up a lot of shape structure. Okay, like shape design. Uh, so that would be it. When you like learn to close the shapes, okay, because now you want to sculpt, it's not like the best design that you come up with. When you move into shape, now you understand, oh, there's like what the mistakes I did in the form. So yeah, in the shape section, you polish actually all of this closing the shape kind of thing. The same thing is gonna happen. You can see like how the hair is also like sitting on top of her head. It's all the form that you want to get. So if you want to like sculpt the head, how are you gonna do it? You can see like the hairs are all bunched up into that bun. Okay, so you can do it like this. I'm still using the contrast in line. Otherwise, you can think of how boring that would look if it's all the lines are the same.
Yeah, hair's a great place to create form, to your point.
Yeah.
And I was on mute before. There aren't any questions. There's a lot of technical questions going on more than anything about tech. And I bought you a number one sticker. I'm having too much fun myself with the stickers. I'm gonna put us in debt.
It's good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know you're having fun.
Stickers are fun.
Yeah. So something like this, yeah. I mean, I don't want to go to like the bun section to do really detail like that, but yeah, you can go, like get the form out of here as well. You can see like how forceful that form is. I also integrated some solid design in there, so it's like not totally organic here, but it's like a little bit shapy. Okay, it's like a little bit stylized there. So how much time we got, Mike? Can we do another one?
We could. I would say maybe half of another one. So this way, at least Swanley and I have 15, 20 minutes each to draw.
Yeah.
I wanted you to kind of be the star for today with your awesome sculpted drawings.
So this feels awesome to you?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, people are praising it in the chat. Maybe you should sell it.
Yes. digital key. Brianna's digging it. We got a sticker from Brianna. Thank you, Brianna. You got a dancing pear with some shades.
These people are crazy. They want, first of all, the sculpture and now drawing.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you, people. Anyway, so let's jump to another one, okay? Because again, this is like the same thing, like the sculpting and all the leg kind of thing. Here maybe I can. Oh, yeah, here's a great form. I just like forget. Look here, like. So you want to continue all this, like where the stork is going. I'm gonna let's say highlight with the blue color, okay? So let's say like where this all the form going, okay? So it's going into that hand there, like in the deltoid section, okay? So you want to continue that. Continue that thing in here. So you see like I'm coming just right below that arm, like that, and then like moving across that deltoid, okay? Like moving on to the deltoid and then across to the arm. So I can sculpt it with my own. Okay, I'm still using the contrast. Contrast is a big key, I guess. I don't think like if you sculpt and don't have like contrast, that would affect it as much as this is affecting. Okay, it really brings in all the volume. And just like with Frazetta did, Frazetta is also bringing the light and shadow. So you see him like creating like dense forms and then less dense forms with the line. So that way he's like creating light and shadow. But yeah, let's move on. Hope you like this one. This is a great one. Okay, I'm gonna do it really quickly. Okay, so I don't want to do it half because it's a great one. I'm not gonna explain it that much. That's the same process. Okay, so coming off, let's see what it's doing. Okay, so just coming off from here, pushing like that, bring this.
Excellent job on her outfit here. It's very good. You
Yeah.
followed the form perfectly.
Yeah, this is very fun to do from some
Yeah.
clothes and models.
I like it. I like the sports top. Very
It's not
nice.
the photo censoring business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man, that's a whole business right there. Just go around with all the nude models and put clothing on them just enough for public use. That's funny.
I was kind of struggling with it, but then I come up with it. So learning new things. Right. Let's get this aggressive hand. Oh, I just made it on one layer, but anyway, who cares? I'm just gonna bring it here. Okay, so I'm not like getting the whole figure down, okay, because gotta resize it takes a lot of time. I'm just like trying to get as much sculpting as I can, okay? So that's my soft touch, that's my guide, okay, to sculpting. I'll really jump in. This is what I do in real time, so now you're gonna really see me aggressively flowing over. Sculpting within that within the force, okay, within the function. It's not that great one. I like to do it again. So let's see, wanna some soft touch, and then there I kind of like missed, it's not that great, so I want to do it again. I'm focusing on like really aggressive, that pushing on the floor kind of thing that she's doing, okay? That's why I'm like bringing in very great line strength in here. This is how I present like more efforts when you move on to another subjects. In the basics, you have learned that, okay, line strength of the line, okay, but now here you're actually thinking about every line that you're using. So, and you can see again, the clothing helping me a lot to define the form like that. That to me is a kind of straight. Okay, so here's a curve, here's a straight. Again, that's a shape thing, but it brings a lot of dynamism. We want to sculpt it like that. Want to go to the legs. Here, this is a great area where I want to sculpt. Look how this is all turning. Okay. Look how this is all turning. Like again, like the torque kind of motion. Torque kind of motion is like amazing, to work with in the forms. You see, like this line, like these two lines, what I did in soft touch, they're again bringing in more volume. I'm trying to get this. I'm gonna leave it like that. That arm, I just completed it because I just uh, yes, that's kind of sculpting again. Yeah, so you see, like again, like aggressively sculpting there. That's amazing. This is what actually I'm addicted to. It's like this is like using metaphors like crawling onto the model's body, how amazing it is. Uh, how much time we got, Mike?
I don't know, maybe a few more minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, a few more minutes.
Yeah, let me know then. I'm gonna close.
Okay, let's say 5. We'll say quarter of the hour.
All right. Did I perform that long?
Yes, time flies when you're performing.
Yeah, to that point, sculpting does take time. It's not a 30-second job. You have to take your time to sculpt the figure. So it's time consuming.
Yep.
Yes.
Again, it's like that contrast with the basics. That Zen mode. You're entering into that Zen mode and just like like
That's right.
sculpting.
The Force Zen.
Yeah. All right. See, I just like missed upon some of the foreshortening, but really, I just like want to make a point in here. It's like the sculpting, so I'm really focusing on that. You see, like how this leg is actually having like little bit negative space. I have more of it, but yeah, the point is sculpting here. All right.
Rihanna says she's loving your lines.
Thanks, Rihanna.
Yep. Beautiful Force lines.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Still like a little bit of that. I don't want to like do like overdo it. I guess yeah, I'm gonna call it in. Like, yeah, this is it. Sometimes like, yeah, like leaving stuff behind is also like an important thing to me. I want my drawings to look opinionated, if that's a word. I mean, my drawing should look like, yeah, they have like an opinion and an idea. Okay, I don't want to like draw everything. This is the most interesting part for me is this. Okay, it's not because of time I'm saying, it's just because yeah, like this is my main idea. Then why I should like keep on focusing on different things and making it as a whole? I really don't. I'm not a big fan of that. Just completing everything. So I'm gonna call it in, and yeah, I hope you like it. And I'm gonna hand it over to Swenley, I guess.
I'm next.
Oh yeah, sorry, it's Mike. All right.
Swanley and Mutunjay.
Stop share. We even confused between 3 of us.
Yes. Swanley's going to take the lead next week with Force Shape. So let's see. I'm going to share. I'm going to try to share my camera. See if this works or not. There we go. Yay, we're in, right? Everyone can see my actual digital camera here. All right.
Yep.
All right, cool. Let me make sure the focus is good. All right, there we go. All right, I'm going to try to go traditional today. Here's my reference, right? I think this might try to shut off on me here and there, so I'll try to just keep tapping it to keep it alive. I don't know if I'll get the whole thing in there, but I'm definitely going to focus on this area. I really want to try to get the torso in there for you guys. I have to say the idea of sculpting with force is so much fun that I've had students in the past, even in classes, just even take areas of the body and sculpt out those areas because there's just so much drama. For me, it's almost like standing at the edge of a cliff and looking down at the ocean and watching the water like ripple its way through and around rocks, right? And there's just like all this energy moving through and around these masses, and I'm there admiring all of that. So that's what I'm going to try and do. I'm also going to try to prove out here that I try to bring the sculpting in actually early. I don't want to make it too much of a separation of then force and form. I just want to do all of it at one time, right? Last time we were here, I moved the iPad Pro over here, but I'm a righty, so it's over here. My apologies. I'm sure I'm going to end up like covering it here and there with my arm. I'll try to bring it down every so often so you could see, but it's a lot harder for me to have it over there than it is over here. So here we go. I'm drawing with Caran d'Ache, by the way, today, because blacker, and I think it'll help you guys see better. And I do want to show off this, talking about the Apple Pencil, which I'll have to refocus here. See if I can even do that. I had to get it. I had to get it engraved, as you can see. It says Force Pencil now on it. Yes, it's a Force. Yes, Force Apple Pencil. Right. Yeah, just to amuse myself. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to draw these forces. So this is an S torso. I'm basically going to go from the back, right, from the back to the stomach. But oh my God, look at that deep dive down in space, right? There's like this tube like this of her body, right? Her body's like going down in this tube. So I have to get that tube and get that rhythm, right? That's basically my job here. So that's what we'll see if I can accomplish or not. I'm going to start very soft and light. I just want to feel things out, especially in a pose like this. Like her head is gigantic. Look, that's how simply I'm drawing her head. It's just this big blob, right? And that's what's great about drawing with soft touch is I don't have to be committed right away. You know, let me just feel things out. I'm doing it through motion. I'm moving. Okay. So I got the head placed in there. I'm looking at like the head shape relative to her shoulder. It's kind of up here. And, you know, I could see the edge of her back. And this lets me keep moving and enjoying the concept of drawing. Right? So I'm just enjoying moving around the piece of paper. I'm drawing with force at the same time. I'm flowing. I'm starting to get a little mass in there. I don't know if you guys can see that, but I did cut across there. So that means, you know, I'm working on the tube, you know, I'm aware of the tube, right? But I want that tube to go from here to here. I want to go around it and down, right? So that's the beginning of me starting to accept that idea, okay? So I'm moving around there and I start digging in there a little bit. I'm like, yeah, let me get that roundness. Now that roundness not only is round, but that's going to push me into her stomach here. So I'm aware of that. It's got to S its way out too. But again, I'm doing it all very gently. And this is, I got to tell you, this is the thing I try to convince. I literally do my best convincing job here with all of you guys on the website and here on the YouTube channel, that soft touch, what I'm doing right now, is probably one of the best tools for you to learn how to draw, right? Because I'm drawing a lot, right? I'm like drawing and I'm drawing a lot, and that's how you learn how to draw. And by drawing lightly, I could do a lot of work right before committing. Here, I'm just wrapping. I'm feeling the roundness of her hip. So you could see the roundness is starting to show up there, right? And I'm like taking my time, right? Because I know I'm going to be spending a lot of time sculpting here. And as I feel like all this proportionally starts to land, if I feel like, you know, my ideas are starting to land, everything's starting to look like it's this, and my ideas are starting to come across, you know, I keep revisiting and I keep pushing down harder and harder, right? And then I start getting more anatomical, right? Like, I'm like, that looks pretty good. I could accept the back there and the muscles of her back. And that's where my line control comes in, right? You can see my fluctuation in the line. Her elbow is sticking out there. I didn't even notice that before until just now. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, her arm's sticking out over here in the background, right? So look, I start insinuating the anatomy, right? So this is it right here. Man, if you leave anything today besides forceful form, look at how powerful soft touch it was here. And soft touch is not only great for force, it is awesome for sculpting, right? Because it gives me time to feel out the form, right? The perspective on her back is really strong. One shoulder's here and one's here. So it's almost like the perspective plane is like this, right? The angle is like this. You see this box I'm drawing up here? It's extremely steep. It's like that, okay? So I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Her spine is like way over here, right? It's like way up here. And her other shoulder is like here, right? Like way over here somewhere. So, you know, roundness wise, it's like this, right? This is me doing the wrapping that we talked about before, right? So here's the roundness of it. That kind of helps me understand the perspective of it, you see? I'm like round, 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 round we go, right? I'm like creating the topography. Is that forceful form? No, it's not. I want to show you what I think you guys should do, which is, you know what, start here. Try to get some of this like form. I already got force, by the way. I got a rhythm going on. I did that first. just to be clear, I did do that first. I'm trying to fill it with some form that's bending and flexible. And I've got her shoulder here and her face is here. All right, I got her ear all the way over here. That starts setting me up with understanding her head. I'm like, oh, that's the front of her face right there. Top of her head is probably like this. How am I doing this? This honestly is just understanding perspective, okay? Like the way I planned out those planes, that's me understanding the box. I did it in a kind of roundish, inflated box way, but it's box. Okay, her eye line is about here, her nose is about here, right? So here's her shoulder. Now it's pretty far down by the time I get to the bottom of that, where it actually creases in like that and then pops out, right? It's like this. All right, so a lot of you ask about proportion in drawing force. Well, look, here's one way of getting it. Take your time, right? Take your time, right? Here's the roundness in the arm, right? If I were drawing without drawing for you guys, I would get to this a lot faster, but I want you to be aware that's not how you start to learn how to draw it. You got to do this, right? You got to take your time, right? Take your time and figure this stuff out, right? Photo's a little hard to see here. I think the spine actually does bring the edge in there. And now what I really love here is I'm almost up to total forceful sculpting. I'm almost ready. I want to get in here and I see the roundness of her lats right here and her shoulder blade, right? So I'm starting to get some forceful sculpting in here. There's another crease right around here somewhere, right? And then down here, I could see the bottom of her ribs. It gets a little darker down there. So I got a little of an edge right there. And then you could see that goes over into her oblique. So I'm looking right here right now. I'm cutting in there and down and around, okay? So I'm like cutting in there and I could see her oblique. It's still round, right? But it's a moment of crossover that I want. And there's a little bit of an overlap right there between her ribs and her stomach, right? Very sensitive, skinny, little informative line right there. Okay, that is very, very important. That darn little subtlety, right? Unfortunately, it's subtle, but it is what it is, right? So I've got this going on, right? Here's the triangle of the sacrum. I'm going to get a little bit more of the contour correct in here. It's more like this, all right? All right, I'm feeling pretty good about this. I've got some nice form going on here. I'm going to try to sculpt more force into this, all right? So I'm going to go with the roundness that I've already built, but I'm going to come down and I'm going to carve down into that rib cage, but I'm going to do it like this. And then I'm going to flip it over and go around like that. And then I'm going to come back around here and I'm going to try to force that to the hip. All right, so here I go. So, and look at again, the crazy amount of perspective that's going on in this one. So I'm sculpting, right? Now what I'm going to grab my China marker for this. There's China marker, right? I'm going to pull the string. Why am I going to this? I'll tell you why, because I'm going to get with a little finer line here. China marker is a little harder than the Caran d'Ache. Caran d'Ache is softer, it's a wider tip, and it's too small for me to draw with like a pencil. So I'm going to get more into pencil mode here, meaning I'm going to hold it overhand, and I'm going to start like sculpting more. You see, I can get clearer line out of that, right? So here I am. And, you know, by the way, sculpting is something you can do blindly, meaning I can look at her, I could pick an area and then just look at her and say, you know what, I'm just gonna sculpt without looking at the drawing and do this and just stare at her. Because it's like patches, you could do patches of areas basically. And then you really start looking at the model instead of focusing so much on your drawing. So I'll just check in. See, I'm drawing a lot, but I'm checking in. I really want this like bulbousness of the shoulder in here. Is that showing up? Yeah, you guys can see that? About Swanley Mrityunjay, is that clear enough for the camera?
Yeah, Dimitrio was saying that, you know, he's trying to follow, but again, because your body's hiding that iPad.
Yeah,
so
sorry. Here, you know what? I'll try to move it out here now because I'm past the hardest part, honestly. So there. Let me see. I'll try to put it here. Okay. All right. You can see at least the part I'm working on. Okay.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good. That's good.
I have a lot of glare for me. I'll try to lean back and forth out of this. Yeah, it's tough. All right. And am I blocking the drawing too much if I'm here? No.
You can do it.
Yeah, it's like I'm right on the, right there is where all the lighting is, and it's, so it's a little challenging. Let me see if I could tilt it out a little bit. Nah, that won't work either. Sorry, guys. All right, let's see. So I know this arm is doing this. What I'll do is so you guys can see both, I'll do it from idea to idea. Okay, so I know I want to carve in here like this. Getting that roundness in there. But all that roundness is pulling up from the back here. You see? So this, all this energy, right, coming from her upper back, even over here. See? Lots of force. Here's her spine. I'm going to darken that in a little bit to showcase it. All right, like so. See, I want to come down the back of the arm here. There's the edge of her arm. I want to feel I want some roundness down here. So I shoved all the force down the back of the arm. Down here, I'm going to do a little that semi-cross hatch, right, to pull roundness down into the bottom of the arm. See that? So I'm literally like directing us from here down. I'm going to try to get more on the front of the shoulder so I can drive that force into, so what I'm doing is I'm taking this force, I'm going here, I'm going here, and then I'm going here. And it's these subtle like angle changes done through curves that keep directing us. So that angle, that angle, that angle, but in curves, right? So it's like that way, that way, that way. Boom, 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 right? And I'm coming up and over, right? You can feel the up and over, right? So her shoulder kind of flattens out here a little bit and then comes down and around. Notice the ball is starting to show up a little bit, right? So I got to be a little careful. I don't want to kill force, right? So I'm going to try to accentuate, I think, a little more here on the roundness of the deltoid and make it more forceful, all right? Our trapezius is pulling over here like this, all right? We've got all this force coming down her back. I really want to get down here before I run out of time. How am I doing on time? I want to make sure Swenley's got time too. So we come down here. I'm going to sculpt my way across the bottom, right? So you can see that, that's that dip down I was talking about. Then I'm going to come over here. I'm going to flip it. I'm going to curve the line upward, meaning here I'm pushing down. Here I'm pushing up because I want the roundness to now go this way and get me over that hip. Okay. Now here, this is very perpendicular, meaning the curve is almost really like that, right, as I go down. So I want to get some of that in there because I can feel the greater trochanter. That's this bone sitting here. I could just see I could see the roundness in there. So I want to sculpt through all of this.
Hey, Mike, someone is asking in the chat. I think you used the analogy of typography earlier. Someone is asking if you could elaborate on that.
Typography. I don't know if I did today, but I probably have in the past with typography, and I think the thing with typography is, typography is like designed line. And I think, we're dealing with that with our line here. Like, what is the thick to thin? What is the weight? How does that work? It's like calligraphy. I usually think of the way I'm drawing as calligraphy. I'm aware of the thick to thins. Now, I don't do the thick to thins, by the way, for the beauty of it, although I think it is beautiful. I don't want to get too caught up in my own, I guess, my ego for the drawing's sake. I just want to try to help figure things out. But, I'm aware if the line is not doing the job I want it to do, right? But when it comes to typography, it's that thick to thin, right? And how, in typography, of course, different fonts have different styling on them as well. So yeah, be aware of that. Like I love like Chinese lettering, right? Like or even in Japan, right? Watching them write. I think it's called, is it Koji or Kuji, something like that is how the symbols are drawn, right? I just talked to one of my students yesterday about it who's learning Japanese actually. So I think it's Kuji or Koji, I forget now. But those are done with such panache, right? With such power and grace. You know, and you want to draw force like that as well, right? To have that level of power and grace to your line. You see? And here I am. I've come down. Look, I basically followed what I set up, right? I just keep adding more and more information to the same ideas, right? So I came down this way. I've built up more roundness, so it goes like this, right? It comes out, it goes around, it goes in and tucks underneath. Here I'm coming down and around this way, and then I flip over and I go down like that, right? So I'm like this, and then down and around that way. And then here I'm coming like this, and then I reversed it. I decided, you know what, over here, I want to come down and do this to it. So you have to almost think, you know, I guess three-dimensionally, right? You've got to try to get some kind of three-dimensional thinking in your work, you know, and respect three-dimensionality when you're drawing to make this start to happen. It's kind of weird, right? Because it's, you know, we're on a flat piece of paper, right? This is flat. This is all an illusion, right? This doesn't exist. Even that's an illusion at this point. That's just a photograph, right? And we're trying to, you know, recreate this illusion, and I'm trying to do it mentally now, not through snapping a photo, you know, and delineate this as an artist, delineate it into line, right? It's pretty tricky, right? And I'm really trying to like get that line on her form, you see. So I think I'm about done. You know, I could go into the face and all and sculpt it. I'd have to move this again. I can't see, but you know, with her face, you know, I would be really, really stringent about making sure I land everything right. It's like, there's her cheek, there's her lip, you know, there's her nose, right? There's the front edge of her nose. Here's the bridge of her nose, right? How far out does her eyebrow go? You know, I already understand the main perspective, right? The main idea of the perspective. I could just about see her eyelid in here, right? I pay very close attention to positive, negative space, like shaping. Like if here's her eyebrow, notice how far her hair is, not that far, right? I really, in a sense, I use my brain to make sure I'm on track with like structure and all, but I shut off a lot of my brain too, I have to say, because I really try to allow my eyes to kind of take some control over what I'm seeing, because I know I want to lie. I know my brain wants to lie about it. See, right now here, I'm looking at this shape of her forehead, and I'm like, that needs to come down. It's pretty narrow, you see? And if I can keep trusting that and yet understanding what I trust, understanding what I'm looking at, then I know everything it'll land right, you know? All right, and I'll be drawing it through understanding, like this is the side of her face. I want that side. I could feel like right around here is the turning edge of her forehead, right, to the side plane of her face, right? Her hair goes up like this, right? And then it tucks behind her ear, right? So I'm here, right? And then this all, you know, like I said, it all starts to fall into place. I just have to be really careful about it, all right? Her neck is in here, creasing, and, you know, we have this hole for her shoulder here, right? And that's where her mouth hooks up to her there, right? Yeah. So I think that's my attempt. I'm going to hand it off to Swanley. I hope you guys enjoyed, you know, watching it on paper. Yeah, so that's it. So we've got Swanley, we've got the winner, right? We got to still announce our winner, and then I have a little surprise for you guys. Okay, so I'm going to pass it off to you, Swanley.
Thanks, Beatrice, for the super chat.
Yes, thank you, Beatrice. That is so awesome. You rock. We got the lemon head. I love lemon head.
All right, let's see. So let me come in here and do the thing that most students are afraid of when they start out. Like we mentioned at the beginning, like this is a force form exercise, and we see again and again when students get to sculpting that they're just working the outline and barely anything is happening on with the surface, you know, inside the contours. So I'm going to, just like Mike, start with the sculpting from the very beginning. Let me grab a bigger brush here. So let's see what's going on here. She's leaning away from us. And I like this twist that's going on. So I'm coming down and now I'm going to cross over. So I have this S curve going on here. You can feel the weight and how it's like squashing. So I want to think about the roundness of the top of her torso. Yeah, I really want that twist. So notice that right from the start, I'm crawling in like Mike showed earlier. Now I'm not just working on the contours. Like here, for example, like force is coming from the top, crossing across the stomach, and this whole area here, like this, the front plane of her pelvis. You know, so I want to come in there and do some work on the inside. Like this is sculpting. Oops. And the way to get good at this is by doing what I'm doing right here. You don't want to, or you do want to cover the whole figure even with surface lines, you know. And will it get messy? Yeah, probably at the start, but that's how you learn. You know, you have to mess it up, learn from it, and do better next time. So, you know, I'm thinking about the front plane of your torso, and also force is driving. So what I'm doing here, basically, let me get the colors in here. So notice how the surface lines are following the directional forces. So this is an S curve, there's a twisting going on. So this is my path, you know, that I'm following. And I'm just taking it beyond the contours to the surface. You know, that's why it's called force surface lines.
Oh, thank you, Jacob. We've got another lemon head from Jacob.
Awesome.
The lemon heads are taking over today. Thank you, guys.
So yeah, notice how much work is going on the surface. You know, this is sculpting. It's not just contours. You know, then you're still in force basics. Okay, now that I have this, I can come in here and find that center line to help me define the form further. So I want to really understand, like, where is that center line? Okay, I can see the V shape of the pelvis here. Okay, so force is driving me from this side of the torso and right into the shoulder. this is coming towards us. So notice again, I'm not drawing contours, I'm creating planes of force. It's coming towards us, and we have the palm of the hand here, wrapping around, hooking around that sword. I can see her thumb going up, stretching. Let me check the distance of the forearm. So right now I'm looking at the negative shape to help me get the proportions, as someone asked about that earlier. You know, it's, you want to just train your eye, you know, and looking at positive and negative shapes can definitely help with that. You know, because of course proportions and placement is important, but we just don't want to make that the goal of the drawing. Let's see, we can do some more sculpting work on the shoulder here. See this wrapping around. Then I can drive force into the shoulder, and I can see a lot of applied force in that corner. Again, here I'm thinking about the side plane of the arm, you know, almost comparing it to a box form. And I'm sculpting this plane right here. And we're looking at the distance from the bottom of her pelvis to the hands, you know, where is it placed relative to it. So as I'm sculpting and driving force around, I'm observing the placement of the body parts relative to each other. And some roundness here, wrapping around to show its direction in space. Wrap around the wrist. And I'm not going into details for the hand now. See, I want a sense of the rib cage in there. You can see it's pulling its way. Okay, and thinking a bit about anatomy, I can see how the abdomen is really stretching and pulling across your stomach. See the corner of your rib cage sticking out right there. This is stretching. and flowing into the hips. Let's see, so this leg right here is really interesting because there is a lot of foreshortening going on. Are there any questions in the chat, or are people
Nope.
following along?
Yeah, following along.
People want your brush.
$100 and I'll give it away.
Here's a question. It said, if you were designing this scene, would you change the shape of the sword for a more forceful one? That's from Demetrio.
Well, it depends. You know, if I'm going for something more realistic, like this is fine. You know, but if I were really like going for a more cartoony or caricature style, perhaps. You know, it all depends on the type of aesthetic that you want.
Yeah, I don't want to get too crazy here, but there's a note I want to make to that, Demetrio. Force is not rhythm. And I think sometimes we get that confused. You know, rhythm is one directional force and another directional force connected, right? So this, I always say the equation to force is two directional forces plus one applied force equals one rhythm, right? Not to get too algebraic here, but that's the equation, right? So this sword is forceful, I guess you could say, based on how she uses it. If she wants to apply force into this straight blade and stick it into something, it could be plenty forceful, right?
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't have to be a scimitar, let's say like this, you know, to be a forceful blade. A straight line still has force in it. Sure, this has an arc of force, but I think it's kind of more how she uses it, right? Because it's a inanimate object, but it's a straight line, it's stiff, it's already got its own type of energy, you know. It's just like a tree would, or even an inanimate object like a table or something. You're always still dealing with some kind of force in it, you know.
You can say that it's not a forceful shape, but it's still forceful.
Yes, that's true. It's not a forceful shape. The scimitar is a forceful shape because we can get a straight and a curve out of that. So another question here, how can you describe the form with force in that supporting hand? The shadow of the bones is confusing me to where the force should go. And that's from Dan. In the supporting hand.
I think this one.
Yeah, I think he's talking about this guy. And how can you describe the form with force in that supporting hand?
Well, the form, if you're talking about sculpting, like just like I did with the torso, the form just follows the directional force of the arm, which is one directional force at the back. You know, so that's what I'm following with the surface lines.
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah. So it's all going like this. And then it gets you out into the hands over the fingers. You know, so you just need to follow the forces. You know, that's why we teach force for form after force basics, because basics is the foundation for all of this.
Yeah, on the note of, I would add to that answer to Dan, for all of you, be aware that when you're trying to find the turning edge, light and shadow does not necessarily dictate the clear structure of something, right? Like take the woman's leg here, where her waist is like this and her thigh is in here like this, and her knee is, let's say, like right here, right? So it kind of creates this tube. Her light and shadow, the core shadow could be here. Okay, it's not in the photo, but I'm just saying it could be, but that's not the turning edge. The turning edge is here, right? And here, because this is the top plane of the box of her leg, right? This is like the top, this is the side, and this would be the bottom, right? So you got to be aware, light and shadow can fool you into where the actual corner of something is, because the body is more round than it is square. So if you want to practice finding turning edges to create forms, you got to be really careful about that. They're not necessarily always one and the same. Sometimes they are. Look at her bicep. That's pretty close. You can see the shadow here. It's on the turning edge. We can see the top of her arm and the side of her arm. So there it works, but not always, you know, so something to be watchful of.
Yeah, indeed. You have to really look at the function and not to the light and shadow. Let's see. So this is coming towards us. Let's see some roundings here of the calves. And this is hanging.
Yeah, it seems like I'm getting some response from what I was talking about with the sword. Yeah, to me, something that hard, like I said, that's got its own energy. You know, it's almost like if you were to hit that sword on a thing of metal and feel the vibration of its strength, like it's strong and straight. That is its force to me. You know, like I said, it's not going to create anything rhythmic because it's a straight line, but it's got its own power, you know? So straight lines are forceful. They're not very fluid, right? And they don't have a lot of applied force, but their direction is very clear, super clear, right? So you want to like almost sort of tap into the concept of what a line means. You know, what does it mean to do this? What does it mean to do this, right? And, you know, I'm using this terrible Zoom tool without the pressure sensitivity, right? But even this to this means very different things to me. The directions are very different, you know?
Yeah, indeed. And look again how much work on the forms itself, guys. Like this is sculpting, you know, if you want to learn it and get to a more refined into a more refined area like Mike and Mentunje demoed, you really have to put in the work. You know, you don't get there by being afraid and careful. You know, like this, the exercise that Mike taught me early on. And it also, I found, helped me a lot with once I get to shape, you know, because all this sculpting, it helps you develop a lot of line control and fearlessness, actually, if you do it correctly. So it ties up nicely in shape once you get there. You know, because all this sculpting helps you to like make be more efficient later on as to where to put the line. You know, because you're so acquainted with the surface, all the subtleties of the surface of the figure, it becomes really easy to pick which lines you're going to use when you draw its shape. Here I'm using the clavicles to make sure that those shoulders are working. Okay, her head and neck. Now this is an area that people a lot of times say that they are challenged with, but you really need to think about the action. Let's see. So we have a clear directional force here. And the front is a bit straighter. Getting some of the volume of the neck there. And even for this, I'm just going to sculpt it. I'm not going into any details. Just cover the surface with force lines. How are we doing with the time?
I was just going to say about one more minute.
Okay. Let's see. So I wanted some lines here also. And I usually leave like the plane closest to me empty, just to give like a subtle hint of light, almost like if I were the light source, right? Because if I cover everything, it can start becoming flat unless I start dealing with the darkness of the different planes, which is also a possibility. But I most of the time leave like that plane that's closest to me white. So for those of you who really want to get good at sculpting, and you're just starting out, like start like this, cover the whole figure with surface lines and don't be afraid of making mistakes. That's how you will learn. Yeah, some of the calf. And if you work with soft touch, like Mike showed earlier, you can work big to small, and even here you can start getting more detail. You can get some of her clothing in here, and you can slowly and gradually build it up. All right, I think I'm going to leave it here. So
Yeah.
I hope you guys drew along and learned a lot. And again, notice how much work went in covering the surface of the figure of the model with force lines. Like, this is sculpting. This is how you get to. This is how you develop, your technique in doing this. Okay, let me stop the share.
All right. Thank you, Swenley. So first thing we're going to do is talk about the winner. Let's see. So let's get that up and running here. That's weird. I feel like I can't hear. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. It's so quiet all of a sudden. It's like usually there's a little of a hiss. Okay, so let's get to it. So our winner for the challenge, the second week of Force February with sculpting, is Tom from Quebec. We chose this drawing, so congratulations, first of all, Tom. And we chose this drawing because, first of all, we love the organicness of it. It really feels fleshy, but to the point of the challenge, there's lots of experimentation in this drawing with the surface line. There's areas here where Tom is pulling on the thigh and pulling on the calf. And one of the things, remember, I brought up numerous times was I really wanted to feel better connection between the stomach and then up into the rib cage. And I can feel that in here. I could see these moments of Tom grabbing over here from the hip, pulling across the stomach, even the diagonal in the belly button, which by the way is very important, right? Really grabbed that and swept up along her stomach here. And that drags us up into the sweep of the ribs, which drags us over the deltoids and down into the arm. So think about it, everyone, right? Her hand grabbing her foot is making her stomach respond the way it is. That's a huge part of learning how to draw with force, right? Is understanding that something happening all the way over here, all the way at the end of her appendages, her hand and her foot, is actually relating to her stomach, right? Which is in the middle of that path, right? So all the way down the road between those two moments. So and nice lines, right? Nice soft touch, really building up into the line. Some good roundness here, force going out into the thigh and the calf. And I just like the experimenting. I like how you dealt with the armpit area underneath here. It's good. I think the head could use a little bit more work, which most of them had. I love these diagrams you have around the drawing. You can see the turning edge work that Tom did over here down in the bottom right-hand corner. It's good. It's a good drawing. It's a very good, strong start for someone to, start learning how to sculpt. So the prize for Tom is you get 1 month of premium membership for free at drawingforce.com. That means that you'll get a 10 to 15 minute recorded session from me on work that you send to me, and you'll be invited to the premium workshop, right? Which is where you'll get to meet all the other premium members, where they submit their work. You could submit your work there as well. So you'll have a chance for me to talk about your work twice in there and get to see what's going on the website. And you get access to all the videos, right? So it's a pretty awesome prize. Email me, Tom. Oh yes, and the forum where Swenley and Matunjay are, right? So you'll have access to the forum where you can post work there as well. So it's a huge learning opportunity if you take advantage of everything. Huge learning opportunity over those 30 days. Email me. My email is mike@drawingforce.com, and then I'll get your account set up. And yeah, so I look forward to having you at the site and seeing what you do over the next 30 days. Okay, last but not least, I had a little surprise for everyone today. Even Mrityunjay and Swenley don't know what this is. Right? Yeah, so let me share with you my surprise, okay? So here it is, just a little fun techie kind of thing I wanted to share with everyone. I just had my birthday, by the way, so my family had bought me an Oculus Quest, and I was digging around, and they did have a drawing app on it. Can you guys all see that right now?
Yeah, I can see.
Okay, great. So I was like, oh my God, this is so perfect because we're doing sculpting in space, all right? So let me see how this works. So I decided to tinker around in here. This is unfortunately not my real studio. God, I wish it was. Look at the size of it. It would be spectacular. But this is me trying to draw with this tool right here. I'll put it on real time for just a few seconds. So the tilting of the camera and it moving around is me actually moving my head, and I'm drawing with this controller, right? And my pressure sensitivity just comes out of how I press the controller down, the trigger on it, and how fast I move, okay? So really hard. I have to say what was amazing about this was when I draw and I sculpt, I do try to imagine drawing like this, meaning when something is far away from me, I do try to imagine on a flat two-dimensional plane that I am going down away from me. Now you can see the leg from the back view there was flat, but the side view, you can see the shapes I drew and you see the loop at the knee, right? So line in perspective disappears fast, right? Because it's really a two-dimensional tool. So I just kept working on this and seeing how much three-dimensionality can I get out of this, okay? So I'm gonna scrub through here. You'll see me, I draw the back leg now and I have it coming towards me. So I'm actually moving my hand in three-dimensional space to make this happen. Some of you may have seen other artists do this in the past. I remember the first time I saw this was actually Glenn Keane drawing in VR, drawing Ariel. And I was like, oh my God, I need to be able to do that. I have used that software before also. It's called Quill. I think this one was called Graphic or Graphite, something like that. It's on the Quest 2, the Oculus Quest 2. So here I am, like I said, I'm drawing this arm. I tried to make sure things went in different directions. And then I drew this arm coming out towards us. I started putting some sculpting in there. All right, here, let me go back to real time again. You can see me trying to move around this thing. So I'm looking around, trying to see how it looks in three-dimensional space. Some areas are really successful, right? Some are not because it's still flat, it's still line, right? So I got the neck and the head there. I start drawing the other arm. I'm like, I'm gonna have this arm go forward in space. It's kind of weird. It's like drawing with this three-dimensional putty blob that's like a line, right? Really, really weird. I'm trying to get the form coming around it there, as you can see. Drawing small is tough too. I tried drawing small and it's not as accurate or as perfect, as it could be, but still cool, still a kitschy thing. I have to say it was very fun to play with. Hopefully in the future, I'll do more of this with some time because I want to try to create planes and then maybe draw on the plane so you can see how that force works in space. We can see that foot's like all the way down there. one arm's coming back, one arm's going forward, right? So I'm trying to get this three-dimensional space to work. Let me fast forward here again. And let's see, I start getting more on that leg. You can see here, I'm sculpting out the back, right? I'm trying to get more line, right? More forceful surface line on there. So now I'm like, okay, I need to describe now the structure so you guys can see it more in full three-dimensional space. So you can see it's starting to happen. And I'm drawing this out of my head, right? Because I have the Oculus Rift headset on me. I'm not looking at any reference. I'm just making this up in three-dimensional space and trying to make it forceful. So you can see I got to this place. I think at this point I stopped, and now I can grab the whole thing with this sphere, and I'm going to rotate it with my hand, you see? So that's what you see me doing here, right? So here I am, which is so cool, right? That I'm grabbing my drawing that's three-dimensional and rotating it in space with my hand, right? Man, if we can only do that on a piece of paper, right? Look at that. So anyway, not to plug Oculus, but I guess I am in some way. It was pretty awesome. The Oculus Quest 2, by the way, is amazing, and it's got this tool in it that you can draw with. Pretty spectacular. I do have to say, after I stopped doing this, I don't know, I felt like I was more aware of like two-dimensional and three-dimensional space, you know, because my head is now visited this room where I'm drawing in three-dimensionality, right? So yeah, it was pretty exciting. I have to say, it was a pretty exciting experience. So
this is just breathtaking. I really want
yeah, I know, it was so awesome. So much fun, right? So any of you that have already an Oculus Quest, I highly recommend you go get this and practice drawing in it. You know, just the mere fact that you're like, when you're drawing in space, you're going into and out of space. For years, as you all know, I've been teaching force, and anytime I started talking about sculpting or talking about depth, I said, try to make believe you're breaking the plane of the page, right? This is 20 years before VR, right? And like, here it is, and I'm actually like doing what I was talking about. And it was so amazing to go forward, to get the arm far away and have the other one come towards me and go past my head. And it was really cool to rotate the drawing and have me look at it, and like I can come up right next to it. You know, when I draw the model, I think of it that dimensional. I'm like, just cresting a shoulder. I always talk about cresting the shoulder and seeing the head, for instance, you know, and like here you could do it, right? Like you can actually feel that three-dimensional experience. And it was pretty amazing. It's pretty addictive. I could easily sit there for hours just sitting and drawing. And I want to start trying to do the surfaces and sculpting in there as well. So hopefully I'll have more videos for you guys in the future to share with you my creations and blunders in trying to work in three-dimensional VR space. So that's it, right? That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed today's Force Friday. A lot of new stuff happened today. Thank you to those of you that, you know, kind of donated really some of your hard-earned money towards using stickers, you know, and supporting us here on this Force channel. Like I said, it'll all be put to good use. I promise you that. And we will see you guys on Monday with the next Force challenge, right? And the next Friday, we'll do the next 2 weeks. I want to congratulate Tom again, and I want to thank all of you that submitted artwork to this past week's challenge. There's a lot of great stuff in there. And this is probably one of the hardest things I have to say to pull off in drawing, is to sculpt space with force. Two very difficult things coming together at one time. Probably the toughest thing we're going to be doing. Okay, so great job, all of you. And thank you, Swenley and Mrityunjay, as always. And we will see everyone next Friday. Have a great weekend. Take care, and bye-bye.
Yes, bye-bye.